Welcome to the Money Mentors Podcast.
As always, we have a lot to dive into here this weekend with Taylor and Laurel here of Matson Financial Services, because a lot of us have heard the old phrase, sell in May and go away. Well, Morningstar points out it may not be the best strategy for the summer of 2025. After all, stocks are actually on sale right now.
Price Slasher Sale. Save on great bread.
Have savings that are out of this world.
Everyday low prices.
Savings for everyone.
Yeah, I like a good sale, especially this time of year. Yeah, but Morningstar points out that while some sectors have rebounded, others have not, and there's still a lot of potential for volatility ahead with more tariff talk and uncertainty about what the Federal Reserve might do in the next few months when it comes to interest rates. So it's not really the best time to just take the summer off from investing, is it?
No. I would argue that there's no good time to just take time off, right? Especially if you're managing your own portfolio. If you have portfolio manager or an advisor, like ourselves who are handling those things. I had a lot of reviews in February and March and April and even so far into May. And a lot of conversation revolved around everything that you just listed. Tariffs, taxes, the markets and market volatility, obviously. But we've been in a position to buy. We've seen some really good discounts out there. Take advantage of that market volatility because of the uncertainty when it comes to the tariffs and a couple other things, of course, as well. Before we actually went on air, I was looking on May 1st, the S&P 500 was at 5604, so $5,604, depending on the day you pull it here. But let's just say that the S&P's roughly at 5,900. If you would have sold on May 1st, and we're just out, you would have missed out on about 5% of that upside. And the S&P so far year to date has turned out to be positive. Not super positive, but we've made up a lot of ground from where we were back in March and April. So the approach of just selling out, we're just going to enjoy the summer. Of course you should enjoy your summer, but make sure you've got your finances in order and you're in a position to take advantage of that volatility.
Because really what's happening right now, we've seen before. I mean, there are different economic factors happening, but to say that economic factors are making an impact on the markets, right? This happens all the time. And if we look back to 2008, 2009, we also have 2018, right, Taylor, where there was a lot of volatility going on. Then again, COVID, right? We had no idea COVID was going to happen. Now we've got all of these tariffs and things. And so it doesn't really matter because it's going to continue to happen. So it's more so the conversation of, what are you doing or what is your advisor doing if you're not here at Matson Financial on your behalf to make sure you're taking advantage, or like we're talking about, taking an opportunity with what's happening? Because if it's not today, it could be another 5 years, 10 years. We don't know what's ahead of us. We know a lot of volatility and the unknown is still going to come. So now's kind of the wake-up call if you haven't yet to say, okay, I see what's happening and this is here to stay. So let me have somebody else help me, have this team here like Matson Financial to coach me and go through this journey with me and be here throughout, and also have an active management style.
Yeah, and there's a lot of ways that we can take advantage of the market volatility, of course, but there's also ways that we can protect ourselves. Maybe we're like most people in March and April, very, very, very uncertain as to what's going on. We know that things are on sale. We know that we should be buying, but I'm just not quite sure if we're at the bottom yet. That's tough to find, right? We know where the bottom's at typically a couple months after we've hit it, right? So there are ways to get into the equity market, to get those market-linked returns, but also continue to protect your downside and manage that volatility. And those are a lot of the strategies that we were utilizing over the last couple months to make sure that we're keeping our clients invested for the long term, we're keeping their plan on track, but we're also protecting what we've got and continuing to protect our downside further.
Real life lessons about your retirement. You're listening to the Money Mentors Podcast.
Well, here's a shocking number about our retirement savings. A record $4 trillion is now saved in target date funds. Now, if you're not sure what those are, they're a common choice in your 401k, usually with a year attached to the fund name. So you select that fund based on the year you think you'll retire. And it sounds easy, right? But Morningstar says it's apparently become the retirement savings vehicle of choice for Americans since so much money has poured into these funds over the last few years. Is this a bad thing, though, or a good thing, Taylor and Laurel? What do you think?
I think bad.
Okay.
I think good just from the sense of people are contributing.
Okay, there you go. That's
right?
what I was going to say. Yeah, but
we can
it's
talk
good
about
and bad.
both.
Yep.
Yes. So you're contributing, which is great. You're taking advantage of free money from your employer. At least you're signed up and doing something with your money. Okay. So no shame to you. That is awesome.
Sure.
However, the bad comes in just to say that it could be better, right? If you had somebody who's coaching you and teaching you about what other avenues could do for you, because like Jennifer, you mentioned a target date fund, it's a set it and forget it, and it's just going to get more conservative as you get older. But that totally takes away from this opportunity to buy more in a down market, right? Mm-hmm. So now you lose out on that active management strategy.
Yeah, and then besides that, those target dates are different for everyone, right? So let's say we've got two couples that want to retire in 2030. One needs income off of their portfolio, one does not, and one wants to invest the balance of that retirement account for their kids, right? So we've got a longer time horizon, which means we've got a little bit higher risk tolerance on those things. So it's also about the usage of those funds. Another example would be somebody that, maybe they rolled their old 401ks over and they've got this new 401k at this company. They've only been there for a couple of years. It's not the vast majority of their nest egg. Mm-hmm. And we're in a market like we are today where there's a lot of sales in the equity market. Well, we want to be able to take advantage of it. We want to be in the equity market. And if you're in a target date 2025 or 2030 fund, it's going to be pretty darn conservative. So it needs to obviously line up with your risk tolerance. But another thing that we see too is fees. The target date fees typically can be a little higher. So when somebody comes through the door and we're looking at their 401k, we're going to do a full analysis from fees to performance on how their portfolio has performed against a benchmark. And then I want to see all of the investment options they have. And sometimes, unfortunately, it's only target date funds. Mm-hmm. So there you're stuck. You don't really have a choice. But a lot of times I'll see, there's 10 or 15 other options as well besides those target date funds. So we can kind of build our own. We can kind of model our own and make sure that we're invested in those areas of the markets that we really want to be in versus just going in it's very well diversified, but sometimes that diversification can hinder your returns a little bit as well as you're highly allocated towards, let's say, international. This year's a bad example. International is doing pretty well, but in the past, we've left a lot of return on the table by having that international holding when the U.S. markets were on fire. So I wouldn't say that they're good or bad. It just depends, like anything, right? Depends on your unique situation, what you've got available to you, and we're here to help you maximize that. That's really the goal.
Want weekly lessons from your money mentors? Yes. Hit the subscribe button now and listen every weekend on Wood Radio.
The opinions expressed in this program are for general informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual or on any specific security. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult your financial advisor prior to investing. Any past performance discussed during this program is no guarantee of future results. Fee-based financial planning and investment services are offered by Matson Financial Services, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Insurance products and services offered through Lakeview Financial Group, LLC, Matson Financial Services, LLC, and Lakeview Financial Group are affiliated. To find out if Matson Financial Services is licensed in your state, please call 800-536-8907.